may be the greatest catch I've ever seen in my life.
Okay, guys, y'all know one thing I talk about all the time, which makes this channel a little bit different from others, is it's really easy to pull up a Dynasty Fantasy Football YouTube channel and go, obviously, these people have no experience actually playing Dynasty. Obviously, these people have maybe been playing Dynasty for 3 months just because they saw that's what everybody else was trending to do. Well, no, that's not the case here. Y'all know that I am very confident in our Dynasty football capabilities. So ever since 2014, pretty much every penny that I've ever had, I've been just spending on Dynasty leagues after Dynasty leagues. So we are in a ton of leagues now. We are in about 20 Dynasty leagues, and all of them have already completed their Dynasty rookie drafts. And there's some trends here where I'm looking across all these leagues, and when you play in 20 leagues, you know that it's more so you have a diversity of players. You just want to make sure that you are making your portfolio as balanced as you can. Well, there are some players I don't have in a single league. I'm going to cover them all here, and I am not saying that we are actively avoiding all these players. That's going to be on a player-by-player basis, and I'll explain why I think that I have none of them. But of course, guys, go down there, drop a like, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel. It helps us out a ton. And yeah, let's dive into the video, and let's bring it up with our first player, and this is going to be Trevor Lawrence. Okay, so there are a couple reasons I don't have Trevor Lawrence in a single league. And no, it's not because I think Trevor Lawrence is overrated. No, Trevor Lawrence is appropriately valued in Dynasty. You are consistently seeing him go at the 101 in a Dynasty rookie draft, and I am on record saying that I think that Trey Lance has a legitimate argument to be made for that 101 pick. But over there on Patreon, when someone shoots me a DM going, Mason, I got the first pick in our Superflex rookie draft, where am I going to go? The answer almost every time is Trevor Lawrence, just because you understand that when you are taking Trevor Lawrence, you're taking a player that's already valued as a first-round Dynasty startup pick. So even if we think that Trey Lance is in consideration at that pick, you really can't take him there just because the market value that you're going to find with Trevor Lawrence. But my problem is I simply had no picks in that range this entire offseason. Now, yes, we actually had a couple first in the early part of the first round, but that was all through trade with what we did during the offseason, because we only missed the playoffs on one team last year, and that team, we missed the playoffs by one spot. I mean, we earned the 106, so really, we had no shot. And the chances that we did have to move up, I definitely traded up where we could, because you don't want to be sitting there with only late first round picks, because if you only have picks in a certain range, you're going to find yourself just drafting the same players over and over and over again. And when you have that much money tied up into your Dynasty leagues and you're only 22 years old, you really can't afford to lose that much money. So you have to make sure you're diversifying. The last thing I can do is go through and own Travis Etienne in every single Dynasty format. All of a sudden, Travis Etienne tears his ACL in week 2, and it doesn't matter if we were smart drafting him or not. At that point, we were like, okay, well, this sucks. Looks like we are holding the bag on a couple Dynasty leagues. So where we could, we moved up in our rookie drafts. But the problem was I was just never willing to pay up for the 101. Like I already said, I believe that Trey Lance was in consideration at that pick for myself. So instead of trading for the 101, a lot of times I was trading to get up to the 105, the 104, the 103, the 102, really just anything in that range where I knew we were going to be coming away with a blue chip prospect. And I think the price for me to move up to the 101 just never really made sense in any league. Now, if there's a spot where it makes sense for us to go out and trade for Trevor Lawrence, that is not necessarily something that I'm against. Like I said, Trevor Lawrence, we understand that he is that blue chip prospect. We understand that he has an extremely high floor and ceiling combination. I mean, his rushing equity is actually a little bit sneaky with what you saw in competitive games at Clemson. So it's nothing against Trevor Lawrence, the prospect. It's more so when you find yourself drafting in the late first and you are trying to move up, it's a lot cheaper to move up to the 103 than it is to move up to the 101, even if you think you're going to be getting comparable players at those two picks. I mean, I'm always going to be taking the discount when we are moving up. But like I said, maybe we go to a league, maybe we decide to trade a player like Russell Wilson to move over and get a share of Trevor Lawrence, because the last thing I want is to go into 2021 without him on a single one of my rosters. But a player that I know we are not going to have on a single one of our rosters this season is going to be Kyle Pitts. Now, with Kyle Pitts, I've had a couple chances to draft him, to be honest. I mean, like I said, we did trade up to get to the 104, the 105 in a few leagues where you saw him falling to that range. But the problem here was we are just looking across the board and we are going, I cannot take this investment into a tight end. It does not matter if this is the best tight end prospect to ever come into the NFL, and I'm not going to focus in on this too much because we've already talked about Kyle Pitts and why I believe that historically it's a very, very bad bet to be taking Kyle Pitts over a Travis Etienne, over a Zach Wilson, over a Justin Fields, over really anybody outside of Jamar Chase in that blue chip prospect range. So with those reasons, I just never was able to press the button on Kyle Pitts. And I came out, and y'all know, I mean, we've been talking about him all offseason. He's been one of the most polarizing players in Dynasty. And right now, I am recording this on June 1st, and it looks like Julio Jones is most likely going to be traded. And I am just going to be having to hold the L here because once Julio is traded, I mean, there is really nothing to expect other than Kyle Pitts to become an untouchable asset in Dynasty Fantasy Football, where we are just going to have to sit here and pray that he does not become Travis Kelce. Because if he becomes Travis Kelce and we just miss out on all of that value, it's going to be a sad 2020. It's going to be a sad 2023. It's going to be a sad 2024 because Kyle Pitts can turn into a monster. I am more so willing to take the bet going, hey, let's sit it out his rookie season, understanding what historically happens with these tight end dynasty values, despite what anybody ever says during a rookie draft. If you've been playing dynasty long enough, if you go through and actually track the ADP, I mean, if you just understand that Noah Fant has had one of the most impressive rookie and sophomore tight end seasons that we have seen in the past 20 years from a player drafted in the first round, and his dynasty value hasn't increased, I mean, I think you can most of the time get away from trading that player in their second year. But here with Kyle Pitts, it may be a little bit harder just because if Julio Jones moves, then you could be looking at him as a player, his rookie season just completely blowing up. Now, let's go over to Michael Carter Jr. Okay, so here with Michael Carter Jr., y'all know that I have given him a ton of crap. I mean, we have called him Devin Singletary 2.0 over and over and over again this offseason. I kind of knew that we were not going to be drafting him anywhere because with Michael Carter Jr., I also was never really in a range to draft him because before our rookie drafts, we went through, we broke down our tiers with how we liked it, and we identified, hey, you better be trying to get in the top 9 picks this year if you really want to be coming away with a prospect that you feel confident about. And if you're not in those top 9 picks, you need to be getting up before the 205. So we really positioned ourselves where we did not have a lot of picks that were in the middle of the second round. I was pretty much a top 9 pick or a beginning of the second round pick, or I'm out on this rookie draft class. Give me the thirds, give me the Nico Collins, give me the Chuba Hubbard. But I was never willing to go out there and pay for that late second, mid second round pick that it would cost to get Michael Carter Jr. Now I know a lot of people are watching this, they don't really understand why I'm calling him Devin Singletary 2.0. And the reason we are calling him Devin Singletary 2.0 is if you checked out our rookie draft guide and you went through and saw the research that we have done with trying to identify these running backs that have upside coming into the NFL, I mean, we really lay it out there. We really show exactly why you're looking for running backs that have size, that have speed, that have NFL draft capital, and that have receiving down capabilities. Those are the 4 boxes you need to check. And if you do not check the majority of those boxes, you really have limited upside at the NFL level. And here with Michael Carter Jr., he's undersized. He's slow. I mean, also, he goes on day 3 of the NFL draft. And I understand he goes at the very top of the 4th round. But still, this is someone that does not check 3 of the 4 boxes we look for. Really, the only thing that he has that you really like is the receiving down capability. And of course, he was a name that a lot of people liked before the NFL draft. And he finds himself in a nice spot in New York. So for those reasons, I mean, he is going in a range of dynasty drafts. I simply don't feel comfortable drafting him. I would much prefer going out and getting a Tevin Coleman for free. I would prefer getting a LaMichael Pirine for completely free rather than drafting Michael Carter Jr. in the second round, throwing the fact that we didn't really have any mid-second round picks. So Michael Carter Jr., someone I'm not going to own at all in 2021. Now, our next player is going to be Amari Rodgers. And here with Amari Rodgers, I really didn't know what to think of him once you had the Green Bay Packers selecting him, because we had him on the radar of a player that we most likely was going to be going higher in the NFL draft than what Dynasty owners were giving him credit for, given the fact that you look at what the NFL does with these Clemson wide receivers. You also looked at real life NFL mock drafts compared to just Dynasty drafts and went, okay, the NFL community is a little bit higher on Amari Rodgers than most. So once you dive into his prospect profile, I mean, it isn't that exciting. I think that at that point, it's another player similar to Michael Carter Jr. that's getting bumped up due to the situation rather than the raw prospect profile. And here with Amari Rodgers, I just think that there are too many red flags to overlook. I mean, yes, you can use the excuse that he was playing alongside some great players at Clemson. Obviously, he played with T. Higgins earlier on in his career. He also plays with some great Devy wide receivers at the same time. But with Amari Rodgers, this is someone that's propped up because of his situation. And his situation isn't even as appealing as it once was now that we have news that Aaron Rodgers may not be in Green Bay in 2021. So if Aaron Rodgers isn't in Green Bay, you're looking at an offense that's starting Jordan Love, that has a wide receiver that can easily see 30% of his team's targets. And at that point, are you really excited about a wide receiver prospect profile that we didn't like coming into the NFL draft? So for that reason, where you had Amari Rodgers going right next to Michael Carter Jr., I was just never willing to press the button. Now, of course, I am not taking an extremely hard stance against him. I mean, if I saw him as a value, if he fell to the late second, early third, at that point, we're fine taking Amari Rodgers. But like I said, this also just goes with the fact that I really didn't have any mid-second round rookie picks this year because that was a range I didn't like, so we traded them away while they still had that value. Okay, so now our next player, Tylan Wallace. Now here with Tylan Wallace, I'll be the first person to admit I loved him coming into the NFL draft. I thought this was going to be a player that we were higher on than most people, but you had a couple things happen here. You had him not only go to the Baltimore Ravens, a very bad landing spot in that you're looking at an offense that simply does not have the passing volume to support more than one passing option at a time on this team. And I mean, where's the upside at that point? Because if they're only going to be able to support one, maybe two passing options on this team, given the low passing volume, and they have Hollywood Brown, and I know a lot of people want to get mad at Hollywood Brown for not succeeding as the wide receiver one in Baltimore, but he never profiles to be a prototypical wide receiver one that's going to be seeing 26% of his team's targets. No, he is a field stretching option. We've talked about this over and over and over again. His elite speed is going to make sure that he is on the field consistently for the Baltimore Ravens. They also go give Sammy Watkins $8 million this offseason. They take Devin Duvernay in the third round of last year's NFL draft. Back in 2019, they take Miles Boykin in the third round out of Notre Dame. And more importantly, they draft Rashad Bateman in the first round this year. So you're looking at Tylan Wallace and you go, okay, best case scenario, absolute best case scenario given the team investments. He's most likely wide receiver 4 on this depth chart. That shouldn't really clear out anytime soon. Worst case scenario, he can fall down to being wide receiver 5, wide receiver 6. And we already identified this offense as an offense that's not going to be able to support more than one, maybe two passing options at best. So Tylan Wallace is the definition of a roster clogger at this point. He falls to day 3 of the NFL draft, which is a major red flag for any of these prospects. So while we love the talent coming in, I mean, if you go to Patreon right now, you pull up our rookie rankings, I promise you, we are lower on Tylan Wallace now than pretty much anyone else you are ever going to see. And if you are using those rankings to help you draft, I'm sure that you're not really coming away with Tylan Wallace at all either. Okay, so now our last player we are going to be bringing up is going to be Kenneth Gainwell. Another running back that we liked going into the NFL draft. I mean, this was someone that checked a few boxes. He had the speed, he had the receiving down capabilities, and we thought that he was going to be drafted, just say, in round 2, in round 3, which should lead him to getting opportunity. But instead, you see him falling all the way down to round 5 for the Philadelphia Eagles. And what is so bad about this is, if you look historically, a round 5 running back pretty much never succeeds at the NFL level. I mean, very rarely are you ever going to have one of these guys slipping through the cracks. And I know a lot of people want to be overconfident in their ability to identify those players. Simply, it's a losing bet when you try to do so. And to go along with this, with Kenneth Gainwell, what you were excited about is you were excited about him having the third down usage on an offense. You were excited about him being the receiving down running back, which we know role like that if you're playing on an offense with a stationary quarterback like Drew Brees, if you're playing on an offense with a stationary quarterback, just say like Tom Brady. I mean, there you can be seeing dump offs after dump offs after dump offs, and you're going to be in a highly efficient offense, and your target volume could be through the roof. But best case scenario here for Kenneth Gainwell, he becomes the receiving down running back on Philadelphia, which is unlikely. And with Jalen Hurts, we understand that Jalen Hurts isn't going to be dumping the ball off. He's an elite rushing quarterback. You look historically, and those quarterbacks aren't necessarily targeting the running backs out of the backfield. So Kenneth Gainwell, I mean, right now looks like he's a historically bad bet given his NFL draft capital. You throw in the fact that the fit isn't necessarily great for a pass catching running back. So someone I am not drafting at all. Give me Nico Collins. Give me Chuba Hubbard. I mean, both those guys I see having way more upside. Now, thank you guys. I really hope y'all enjoyed this video. I really hope y'all got something from it. Of course, go down there, drop a like, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel. It helps us out a ton, and I will see y'all with the video tomorrow. I really owe a massive thank you for all the Patreon supporters in Ben, Braden, Zach, Ryan, William, Derek, Justin, Marshall, Tyler, and Eamon. Thank you so much, guys.